Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. Coaching careers don't come much more accomplished than that of Larry Holley at a couple of other stops, but almost all at Jewell College. Holley has won over 900 basketball games in his career before retiring last year. About a year into his retirement, he's enjoying life, but can look back on a career where he made 3 Elite Eights in NAIA Division II, 4 Final Fours, won numerous league titles, and as I said, won over 900 games. Another remarkable aspect of the product of a small town in Missouri where he would graduate with a class of 10 is the fact that over the years at Jewell, 96% of his 4-year students that he coached in basketball graduated from college. He owns 830 wins at Jewell, as I mentioned, over 900 in total, 12 conference championships, 25 20-win seasons, including 14 with 25 or more wins, and topped the 30-win plateau 4 times. He raised 3 daughters with his late wife, Ann, 1998 Jewell graduate Lindsay, 2002 Jewell graduate Lauren, and his youngest daughter, 2003 Drake University graduate Lacey. Today, he is married to wife Linda for 12 years and has numerous grandchildren. The son of a basketball coach and school administrator, he turned his small-town roots into a fabulous career that puts him alongside some of the greatest names in the game. But he's humble about it all along the way, and you'll hear his great story, lots of laughs, lots of funny stories as well, including the one about how he met his first wife. It's a true treasure. All that coming up with Larry Holley right here on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. What's the difference at this time of year as we head toward the warmer months for homeowners, and what should they be looking at, coronavirus or not?
If you didn't do a good job of home maintenance in the fall, cleaning your gutters out, when we get the spring rains, that can be a real problem. So you want to make sure that you've done a good job on your home maintenance, cleaning your gutters out. We can help with that. I always tell people they never get their roof inspected. They get their furnace inspected once a year, but they never get their roof inspected. And we do the inspection on your roof for free. So you call, you make an appointment, and we'll show up, do the inspection. It's free. You should have your roof looked at once a year. Take advantage of us. And most likely you're fine. And if there's a problem, hopefully we can get out in front of it and save you money in the end.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. I just want to thank everybody for supporting local restaurants during this time of uncertainty. 23rd Street Brewery is now open until this pandemic is over. And right now, more than anything, local restaurants need your help and support. Come on out and see us. 23rd Street Brewery is open now from 11:30 till 9 o'clock for dine-in and carry-out. Whatever we can do to help you out, maybe with your catering needs, too. I appreciate all the support, and thank you for continuing to shop local.
I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from WreckExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit recexpert.com and learn more.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Larry from Jameson, Missouri, do you have a first memory or anything like that of Jameson, a town of Missouri?
Well, my mom and dad were both teaching at Jameson, and they rented 3 rooms out of a home from the Bryant family. And I have a faint memory of riding a tricycle in front of that house. And then we made the big move when I was 4 years old across the street. They weren't my grandparents, but they were very much like grandparents. But those, a lot of great young memories at Jameson. It was a great place to grow up.
Did you have siblings?
I did not. My background, my dad was 12th out of 14 children. My mother was 15th out of 16.
Wow.
Believe it or not, I'm an only child. I don't know if they knew what was causing it, but I obviously have lots of cousins. Most of them were in the area growing up. Counted up, had about 65 first cousins and over 200 first and second cousins combined. So had a lot of folks that served as brothers and sisters to me, and it was not a lonely time for me at all.
It's a small town. Your dad's the superintendent of schools and the basketball coach, and from what I've read and heard, basketball was kind of immersed you pretty early.
It did. I grew up in the gymnasium with him and his players. They were my heroes. His best player on his 52 team, Eddie Hightree, wore number 22. So when I grew up, I had to wear number 22 and do some of his mannerisms. And he was an idol of mine, and it just kind of grew from there. On my mother's side of the family, had several basketball players who went on, a few who went on and played at college. I had one who was on a team at Coffey, Missouri, Coffey, which is 7 miles north of Jameson and where my mom and dad grew up. Actually, I'll start with this. My mother's sister, Bobby Pugh, scored 102 points in a single game at Lock Springs, Missouri, back in the 20s. Her son signed to play at the University of Missouri in the early 50s. Teammates included Norm Stewart, and he had a good experience at the University of Missouri. I had a cousin, Darrell Foster, at the singing scoring record at Northwest Missouri State back in the 40s. I had another cousin, Tom Premer, who played in the NEI National Tournament for Culver Stockton back in the 40s. Now, obviously, I didn't know all this at an early age, but found this out later on. And so on my mother's side of the family, certainly basketball was big. On my dad's side of the family, my dad was 12th out of 14. None of the previous 11 went beyond 8th grade. My dad was the first one to do that, and he actually went a week, quit for 4 years, came back as a 19-year-old high school freshman, and graduated at the age of 22. But basketball has been first and foremost in my life, and spent a lot of time shooting at the basket my dad built for me just north of our house, and certainly I had a key to the gym, so spent a lot of time.
What kind of a player was he, or was he older enough that you didn't really get a sense of that?
Well, he, as I said, he came back to school as a 19-year-old freshman, and he told me that he wasn't very good. He remembers being in a game where they got beat 21-1, and the 1 point was somebody knocked him down, and he got up and made a free throw. So I don't think he was a bird, but he didn't play in college and didn't play very much in high school at his age, but certainly supported me and was my my coach through my 8th grade year, through junior high. And when I got in high school, he didn't want anyone saying that I was playing because I was the coach's son. So we hired a coach, Tom McDaniel, who I talk to still from time to time, and one of my mentors.
That sounds like a really fantastic sacrifice for your dad to make. Clearly, he was probably loved coaching, and to give it up like that because he didn't want maybe either extra pressure or whatever on you. That really says a lot to me.
Well, he continued to coach the girls' team, and this was back when it was 6-on-6.
Offense and defense, right?
And the defense, and so he did continue to do that, and. But he certainly, he and Mom certainly followed me throughout my high school and college career, and it was, it was a lot of fun, and he was certainly a great influence on me. I always said that my mom was my biggest supporter, and my dad was my biggest critic. But I know he was proud of me as I went through high school and college in my playing days.
Just a little sidebar. I always wondered how little fun it was to be one of the young ladies who just played defense all the time.
I remember running basketball camps at Northwest Missouri State, and we'd have a lot of kids from Iowa come down, and I'd watch the girls' camp, and you could tell the girls that had never really touched a basketball. All they had played was defense throughout, and of course I watched that in high school with some of my classmates, and there were good girls teams, but certainly they didn't have the experience of shooting and dribbling a whole lot.
What was that's a small town, Jameson. What was life like, say, as a teenager in that time?
Well, it was a farming community. I lived in town. I tell people I was all village, and but we had a great experience. I mean, you don't know any better. I mean, you grow up and nobody locks their doors, and you have a small community with 2 grocery stores and 2 filling stations and 2 little restaurants and a post office and 3 churches. It was filled with activity. My mother was also my speech teacher, and she made me go to speech contests, and I was involved in music. She allowed me to play piano at an early age, and it was a busy time. If as my dad would say, anybody that wanted to be in the band could be in the band. Anybody that wanted to be in the choir could be in the choir. Now you might have to sing very softly. and anyone that wanted a basketball uniform could have one. When I was a freshman, we started a track team, so it was filled with activities through the school. My mom, I sent you a picture of my senior class. There were 10 in my graduating class, but. Right. In the picture of the 10 seniors, there's a picture of my dad because he was superintendent, and there's a picture of my mom because she was the principal. So if I got in trouble at school, I really got in trouble at home.
How would you describe your relationship that your parents had?
Well, it was good. It was very good. My dad was, so well thought of. I still go back to Jameson a couple of times a year, mostly to hear people talk about my mom and dad, specifically my dad. He died during my first year of coaching. I was in my first year at Harrisburg High School, and he passed away. And I really never got a chance to know him as I was an adult, but had great respect for him. Obviously, my mother lived into the late 90s, so I got to know her very, very well. But had an excellent relationship, and just wish I could have had one more visit with my dad.
Yeah, I know how you feel. My dad's just went into a home, so that's basically sort of the end of that. But when did you feel like you had some real aptitude for the game? You'd go on to be an all-state player. But...
Well, I played from 7th grade on. We played a lot of basketball in games and tournaments. I think I probably knew as maybe my junior year that maybe I had the potential to play beyond high school, and certainly had that goal. But the goal was, getting better every day, and our teammates, having good years. And but it was something that I just grew up with. I tell the story that at the age of 3 or 4, I would shoot 10 free throws with my mom every night before I would go to bed and say my prayers, and I have a faint memory of that. So basketball was always very important. Had one in my hands a whole lot. And as I said, I had a key to the gym, and that helped immensely.
So you get all state honors in small school basketball, a class of 10. I assume that's 1A or whatever the designation was then. What were your thoughts as you're winding up your high school career as, obviously good enough to go on to college, but what were your choices? What were your decision-making process like to have you end up at William Jewell?
Well, it's interesting. I was getting some interest from some area junior colleges and some small schools, and I actually, growing up in kind of north central Missouri, I really thought I would go to Northwest Missouri State and try to play, and Northeast Missouri State was also an option for me. But I guess in the summer prior to my senior year in high school, I heard from William Jewell. And what's funny, in the fall of my senior year, the first call I got from Jewell College was from Norris Patterson, who was the athletic director and chair of the physical education department, but he was the head football coach. And I hung up from that call, and I thought, my goodness, I've never played football. We don't even have football at Jameson. But later on, the track coach came to visit. I had been really surprised, quite honestly, to win the state indoor mile run a couple of weeks after the state basketball tournament my senior year. And he stopped by, and I really started thinking about William Jewell. And then the basketball coach was at a career day that I got to speak to him, and then I made the visit, and I was sold. And William Jewell would allow me to do things other than just basketball. I did cross country and track all 4 years. I was in both the concert and pep bands and chapel choir, and fraternity was a big thing for me at Jewell. So it was a great decision for me, and it's lasted a lifetime. I still have close relationships with teammates and fraternity brothers, as all people do, but it was the right place at the right time for me.
It sounds like you always kept yourself remarkably busy. Well, is that true, or did you ever give yourself time for introspection?
Well, it was a busy time. In high school, I was honored to go to state 5 times, and a lot of that had to do with coaches and teachers, and I just took advantage of them helping me. But it was a busy time. My senior year, we had a really good basketball team, and we went 33-1, got third at the state, and 2 weeks later, I was running the state indoor mile, ran the state outdoor mile later, and went to music contest and speech contest. And then I go to William Jewell, and I'm in a sport all seasons. And it was kind of comical because at the end of each basketball season, my track coach would say, Larry, why don't you just take a week off before you come out for your first track practice? And I didn't know how to spend that week because every day I would go to class, and every afternoon I would either go to cross-country practice or basketball practice or track and field practice. And I probably just wasted my time during that time. But it was a busy time. But, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. My parents were so busy in that small community, from service clubs to Masonic Lodge to Eastern Star to church, but practically lived at that school growing up, and did the same thing living in the gymnasium and on the track at William Jewell.
During this time, I mean, pretty much all along, did you think that coaching was going to be the thing for you, or were there any other pursuits that you had some interest in?
Well, I think my minister, I went to the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I think he wanted me to go to Culver Stockton College and be a minister. I don't think my mother would have been opposed to that. She probably wanted me to be a music teacher, but I knew from the time I was probably a sophomore in high school that I wanted to coach. And actually, my dad tried to talk me out of it because, you're putting your product out there every Tuesday and Friday night, and everybody's smarter than you. If you don't believe it, just go sit in the bleachers and listen to them. But he didn't want me to go through that. And because I would sit at the dinner table hearing these stories about coaches that were getting fired for various reasons. But he finally relented. That's the only thing I really ever thought about doing seriously. And fortunately had the opportunity, and I've just been blessed with great mentors and great coaches to help me along the way.
Well, one of your teammates at William Jewell, and I wanted you to talk about some of your teams there, was Homer Drew, who was a very accomplished player as well and was 1 year ahead of you. What kind of friendship did you guys have, and what kind of teams did? It sounds like if you had 1,000-point scorer in you and Homer Drew, who was a honorable mention All-American the whole time, that you must have been pretty good.
Well, I was blessed to have really good teammates. We won three of my 4 years. We won the conference title, and Homer is just one of the best people I know, and still have a really nice relationship with him. When he was inducted into the Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame here in Kansas City this past year, got to spend some time with him. I still talk with him. Obviously, his son Scott's the head coach at Baylor, and Bryce, his other son, who played in the NBA, is the new coach at Grand Canyon University. But just a great person and outstanding teammate. Learned an awful lot from him, and obviously he went on to bigger and greater things. We used to ride back on the bus together and talk about dreaming of maybe someday coaching at Roofing-Jewell. I got to do that. He obviously had a great coaching career at Bethel and Mishawaka, Indiana, and later on at Valparaiso. But great teammate, along with others that I had, but still a great friend. And we did have good teams. One of the sad parts is we got beat in the NAIA playoffs to go to the national tournament each year, but we got that opportunity 3 times and just lost to some really good teams who went on and did well at the national level.
So you knew you were going to be a coach. You graduate and you get a basketball job in Harrisburg, and you coached 6 different teams. Is that right? Without an assistant coach?
I did. Actually, I'll back up a little bit with you. I graduated in '67, and I got a graduate assistantship at the University of Missouri in the physical education department. Mm-hmm. It happened to be somebody by the name of Norm Stewart's first year at the University of Missouri. And while I was not on his staff, I became really good friends with his 2 assistant coaches, Roy DeWitz and Bob Price. Played noon hour basketball, all this and that. And I went to a lot of Coach Stewart's practices and took a lot of notes. But my first year was Harrisburg, Missouri, just north of Columbia. And it was a small school, had about 100. It was much bigger than Jameson, but had about 120 students, I think, in the upper 4 grades. And David Smith was the coach prior to me and had done a great job. He went on to coach at Kirksville High School. And but yes, I had 6 basketball teams, had varsity JV and junior high girls, varsity JV, junior high boys. We practiced before school, during school, after school, Saturday mornings and Sunday afternoons. But I grew up watching my dad and my high school coach do that. So I came from a place that had that type of activity. I mean, basketball was the thing, and it was a busy time, 91 games. Fortunately, all the teams had winning records, and again, it wasn't so much what I had done. The previous coach had done a great job, but it was a great year, a busy year. I started our cross-country program there and kind of started track and field for him in the spring, but great experience. I went back to the 50-year reunion of that particular class a year ago, and I'm sitting around having fun with a bunch of 68-year-olds and reminiscing about my first year of coaching. But it was a great start for me, and I'm always grateful, will always be grateful for the folks at Harrisburg who got me off to a good start.
What was your personal life like at this time, or did you have one?
Well, I was single. I kept asking everybody, but nobody ever said yes. And I was single till I was 29. So I tell people, and this is absolutely true, I knew I was going to be at that gym at that school all the time. So I bought a 12 by 51 mobile home. I parked it right across the highway from the school because I knew that that's where I was going to be. And so I was there 1 year in that particular spot, and then took the Central Methodist job, moved my 12 by 51 over to Fayette, Missouri, and lived in it for 6 years there. But I was single and just kind of dating a little bit here and there, but mainly involved obviously in coaching and teaching during those early years.
Central, you get an opportunity as a 23-year-old. It seems great, but Central was a tough job, wasn't it?
It was, and I almost didn't take it. I wasn't very smart, but I knew it was going to be a challenge. My first 2 years, Central had great success. If you look back in the history of the old MCAU conference in all sports, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, they were the dominant program in both football in basketball. In fact, their 1950 team, I think, got third in the nation. Bob Bonetta, who later coached at, at a lot of places, Bradley, Army, University of Missouri, all that, was the coach there at that time. But they had a new president come in, and I want to say he was anti-athletics, but he eventually took all the scholarships away. In my first 2 years at Central Methodist, we did not have a dime for athletic scholarships, and that's why I almost didn't take it, not because I didn't want the opportunity. So I'm there my first 2 years. I'm 13 and 34, and I'm thinking, who in the world's going to hire me for another job? But the experience was good. We got a little bit better, and then I had the opportunity to go to Northwest Missouri State as an assistant.
So you coached there for a couple of years, and then you would get the opportunity at William-Jewell. It's, not even, you're around 30 years old, and you're already maybe getting your dream job, but you did like it at Northwest Missouri.
Well, Northwest Missouri was, as I was growing up, I mean, that thinking about jobs, that was kind of a dream job at Northwest. Bob Eichelhart had been an All-American at Central Methodist, and we developed a good relationship. His wife was from Harrisburg, so knew the family, and I go up there as an assistant to him in the fall of '75, and was an assistant 2 years, and he decides to retire from coaching. And all of a sudden, I'm the head coach at Northwest Missouri State, and we go 11 and 15 my first year, and then 15 and 11. We set an NCAA record. We went 15 and 0 at home, and 0 and 11 on the road. I just couldn't take those referees with me on the road. But it was a marvelous 2 years. And when William-Jewell called to see if I was interested in the job, I didn't really think I would be. We had 11 full in-state grants at Northwest. We'd had the first winning season in a number of years, had a good recruiting year, but the more I looked at William-Jewell, the more I liked it. My wife and I wrote down 76 factors to either stay or leave Maryville and go to William-Jewell. And when we tallied them up, it was actually 38 to stay and 38 to leave. And these factors were some as minuscule as, well, Liberty has a McDonald's, Maryville does not, or the school system and hospital, all the important things. But I had such a marvelous experience at William-Jewell as a student athlete, and it was a perfect place for me as a student athlete, and obviously it became the perfect place for me as a college basketball coach.
How did you meet your first wife?
Well, my first wife, Ann, it's I don't know how much time you have on this podcast.
As much as you want.
As I said, I was single. I was dating around, wasn't dating anybody seriously, and the state tournament in Missouri was being held at the Hearn Center at the University of Missouri, and I'm down there recruiting. I had a date. Honestly, I don't remember her name now, and she probably doesn't remember mine either. But so I'm at the state tournament, and also there is Lynn Cundiff, who had been a college teammate at William-Jewell, and who was the top assistant at Missouri Western State University. And so we're sitting there, he with his wife, I with my date, and the rumor starts going through the Hearn Center that Norm Stewart is going to resign his position at the University of Missouri and take a job in the ABA. I can't remember if it was San Antonio or Dallas at the time, but it was a really big rumor. Well, the head coach at Missouri Western was Gary Filbert, who later became Coach Stewart's assistant. But Gary and Norm were teammates at the University of Missouri, and he had been quite successful at Missouri Western. So Lynn Cundiff, his assistant, and being a good assistant, gets on the phone and calls Gary and says, "Get your butt down here. Norm's going to announce his resignation. You need to be seen. You can have a chance to be the next head coach at University of Missouri." So Gary is in St. Joe, Missouri. He and his wife drive to Columbia, and all of a sudden now there's 6 of us there watching the state tournament. Well, as the evening goes by, obviously Norm doesn't leave. He announces he's going to stay at the University of Missouri. So the 6 of us go out to Jack's Coronado Club, a place to get dinner and dance, that sort of thing. So we're sitting there and just conversing, and Lynn, again, had been my teammate at Jewell, and Gary had become a good coaching friend. And again, I'm at Central Methodist at the time, and in walks this other couple. And this other couple, the young lady was very attractive and kind of caught my attention. And so every time that she and her date would go to the dance floor. I would grab my date and go to the dance floor just so I could watch her dance. And I do that 2 or 3 times, and the evening goes along, and she comes over and starts talking to Gary Filbert and Lynn Cundiff, the 2 other couples that I'm there with. But I don't get introduced to her, and it's obvious that they know him very well. So the evening goes on, and a couple weeks later, I'm out on the town in Columbia again. I'm single, and I'm at another dance place, and here she is with a different guy. And so I get home that night about 2 in the morning, 1 or 2 in the morning. This is absolutely true story. And I called Gary Filbert, the head coach at Missouri Western, at 2 a.m., and he answers the phone kind of groggy. I said, Gary, what was the name of that girl who introduced herself to you on the way to the dance floor at Jack's Coronado Club last Saturday night? And he says, who is this? And I said, that's Larry Holley. I said, and I repeat, what was the name of that girl that introduced herself to you on the way to the dance floor at Jack's Coronado Club? He turns to his wife and said, Betty, what's the name of that girl? Pearl. I said, go back to sleep. The next day, or later that day, which was Sunday, I call information in Columbia, Missouri. I get her phone number. You couldn't do this today because they aren't giving out phone numbers. And I call her and I said, you don't know me, but what are you doing Friday and or Saturday and or Sunday? And I explained my relationship with Gary Filbert. As it turns out, my teammate Lynn Cundiff was her math teacher or geometry teacher at Mexico High School, and Gary had taught her how to swim and all this and that. Well, she had a date on Friday, but she went out with me on Saturday. And this was in late March, and we were married August 8th.
Wow.
And one of the best recruiting jobs I ever did. And so it was, but that's exactly, it's all Norm Stewart's fault. If Norm was not considering that job in the ABA, Gary wouldn't have come down. We wouldn't have gone to the dance club. I wouldn't have seen her, and then I wouldn't have seen her again. And it was kind of, it was really neat. And she passed away, unfortunately, in 2006, and we got to be together for 31 plus years and had 3 beautiful daughters. And so, yeah, it was a whirlwind, I guess you could say, and it worked out quite well.
Really cool, love at first sight story, that's for sure. Our guest is
it was for me. I don't know if it was for her.
Well, it must have been pretty close if you got married 4 months later. I don't know. Anyway.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that, and moving on in age as we all are. What do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dan. They just contacted me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. It's time now to get some great assistance on healthcare with Chad Beisel from no-nonsense healthcareninja.com. And Chad, even your business's name would indicate that you have a real aggressive way and an important way to go after some health insurance for your clients.
What I've found out in the industry is just a lot of people are really confused. They don't know what plans are good, what their plans offer, how they cover. And so I've just taken the approach of being really educated on what options are available to clients and showing them all the options that are available and making sure they understand them so they can pick and choose what options are good for them.
And one thing that's really important, of course, is access to doctors and hospitals.
Absolutely. That's becoming a big issue for a lot of people. Some of the plans out there are going to restrict those clients to where they can and cannot go. So if you live just outside the Kansas City metro, some of the counties outside, you may not be able to go to some of the hospitals up here in the Kansas City area. So making sure that you have a plan that's got doctors and hospitals and places you want to go is really, really important today.
Learn more by visiting NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com and let Chad help you. Let's spend a minute with Dr. Brad Woodle, who along with his wife, Dr. Christina Woodle, the owners of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, my home for chiropractic care. And first of all, just tell us about the wide range of services you offer.
Danny, we offer comprehensive chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapy, and rehab. We do a very thorough examination, x-rays on site as necessary, and we have a full rehabilitation department, so we can help out with exercises, stretches, different therapies for the complex, but also the very simple conditions we treat.
You have been deemed essential and have remained open all through this COVID-19 process. What are some of the things you've done to make sure that was the case?
From the very beginning, in March, we started to make sure that we were cleaning and sanitizing with EPA-registered sanitizing products. We also implemented masks way before the state required them. We implemented a parking lot waiting room, took out half of the chairs in our waiting room, and made sure to space out visits so we could appropriately meet, discuss, and also screen patients to make sure we were taking care of healthy people.
Find out more about Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture and how they can help you at asfca.com. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Our guest is Larry Holley. Of course, he won over 900 games in college basketball, among the highest totals of anybody. And the first year at William-Jewell was a little bit of a struggle, but pretty soon, but right after that, you kicked it in pretty good. What was the transition there, and how did you make it happen so fast?
Well, my first year was kind of a struggle. Now I wouldn't change it, and I didn't have any recruits. I took the job fairly late. We went 10-19, and but those were John Hickman's guys, and they did everything I asked at every turn. It was really, really kind of special. And but then kind of had somebody that kind of put us on the map. There was a young man who was leaving the University of Missouri by the name of Kirk Schauber, who'd been a big star at North Kansas City High School in all the sports, and had actually played quite a bit at Missouri as a freshman. And then as a sophomore, things didn't work out, and he decided to leave. And there was a family friend who was a Jewell grad that called me, and he transferred in, and he made me pretty smart. I got a lot smarter when he became eligible, but it did turn it around. We were 15-13, and then all of a sudden we're winning 22 his senior year, and I think really because he came to Jewell, it kind of put the spotlight on us a little bit, and we got some good recruits, and I'm like anybody else. I'm a lot smarter with good players, and the schools noticed that and helped us a little bit on scholarships a little bit more, and then had probably our best run from 84-85 through 87-88. But it was a great run. Had some good momentum in each of the 4 decades that I coached, but just very fortunate from a recruiting standpoint that we got young men in that were talented and bought into our system. But I didn't make a basket. I didn't make an assist. It was the players, but they did buy into the system, and I was very blessed to have good enough players to get it turned around.
Well, you give all the credit to the players, but as good as the players are, they have to be coached. They have to do what is right. Describe, how did you develop your philosophy of coaching, and how would you describe it?
Well, when I started out, like most guys, I did what I knew, which was what we ran in college. And my college coach, Jim Nelson, who's in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame and was a two-time All-American football player, actually, at the Missouri Valley College back in the 40s. But we ran the shuffle offense, and it was the Drake shuffle. Bruce Drake, the head coach, University of Oklahoma, and the primary offense is all 5 players play all 5 positions. And then against the zone, there was a 4-man rotation with the post man staying inside, and so that was the zone offense. Defensively, that was the time of John Wooden in the 60s and winning the national tournament in 64 with a 2-2-1 press with Hazard and Goodrich in that group. And so we played a 2-2-1 press almost all 4 years that I was at Jewell. And then we dropped back into a 1-3-1 zone. That was probably because I was not a great man-to-man defender. I don't know that for sure. But we would play a 2-2-1 press back to a 1-3-1 and played very little man-to-man. Same thing in high school. In high school, my high school coach and in my senior year, we were really good. And he used what was called what I now call the plunger defense, where you have a player who plays when the ball's at the top of the key, it looks like a 1-2-2. And when the ball's at the wing, that player drops down to the middle, it looks like a 2-1-2, and when the ball goes to the corner, like all zones, it looks like a 2-3. And so I used that some in my coaching career. And so I used the shuffle my year at Harrisburg and my first 2 years at Central Methodist. And then I mentioned Jerry Filbert to you. And what's interesting, I'm actually writing a book on my life, so some of this is coming to mind as I'm talking to you right now. But Jerry Filbert, I mentioned, was the coach at Missouri Western, and he and his first wife got divorced. And as he's asked Betty to marry him, I actually went on his second honeymoon with him. Gary and his wife Betty were going to Colorado, and I tagged along and did a little recruiting. And I'm sitting at a truck stop in Sterling, Colorado, Northeastern Community College. Roy Edwards was the coach, and he is actually the guy that invented the flex. I'm sure you've heard of the flex. Mm-hmm. Well, he called it spots and over. Spots being 4 out, 1 in. Post player stays the same. Over being all 5 players play all 5 positions. So it was similar to the shuffle, but it was out of a 2-guard front rather than a 1-guard front. So he's diagramming this to me, and I like it. And I was looking for something different. I was looking for a 2-guard front, and I was recruiting 2 of these players. Luckily, one of them came to Central Methodist to play for me. And so with his help and phone calls back to Coach Edwards, I put in what is now called the flex and used it for about the next 20 years. Used it my last 4 years at Central Methodist, all 4 years, even as an assistant at Northwest for 2 years. We used it all 4 years, and then we used it until through 1991 at Jewell. And then I wanted something new. I wanted a 1-guard front. And so as would happen with me sometimes, when I go to the bathroom, I will take something to read. And this is PG, but I'm sitting there reading this article about this 1-4 offense that Gary Colson had at Fresno State University and the success he had with it. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I kind of like this. So I go back to the office, I call him, he sends me video, he sends me more information, and I put that in, and we called it Fresno. And so it was out of a 1-4. We were developing some good big men. It's kind of an inside-out, type of offense. You're going to throw it inside, report comes back out. Even though we had the 3-point line, I've certainly had a number of outstanding 3-point shooters. If you have a good postman and they've got to go double on him, you kick it out. Now you've got the uncontested 3. But we put that in, and that kind of became our staple until my last 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years at Jewell. And we had some really good players, and we kind of had we didn't have a post player on the floor, but I had a 6'6" player. He's actually a power forward who had played point guard growing up. I had a 6'5" kid who was our point guard. And then we had 3 really good transfers in. And so we put in kind of a 5-out, kind of like what you see now, open middle, and had some success with that as well. So it's kind of evolved. I kind of see what our talent is. You don't always get the exact players that you want. So I have a certain system, but I also obviously make adjustments to whatever the talent is. Defensively, candidly, when I started coaching at Central Methodist, I knew very little about man-to-man defense. So I spent a lot of time buying Bobby Knight books and videos and got better at it. Had some assistant coaches who really, I learned so much from our assistant coaches and our players, but I've been blessed with outstanding assistants who made me a much better coach, especially at the defensive end. And so we became a man-to-man defensive team. We did do some matchup defense. I borrowed from Fresno State. Boyd Grant at that time was the head coach, and that was successful for us as well. So we have done multiple defenses, primarily man-to-man late in my career, but some 1-3-1 and the plunger and some matchup. And offensively, it's just kind of evolved depending on what our talent dictated. And for the most part, all of it has been pretty successful.
It certainly has. And as you're on a really fantastic run in the 80s and 90s, you went to 3 Elite Eights in NAIA Division II and, some Final Fours. You won 4 straight league championships at one point. You won 8 league championships in that span. At any point at that during that time, did you consider moving on, or were there opportunities to move on?
There were opportunities, but I'm going to tell you a story about an old coaching friend of mine. Jim Darden was the longtime coach at Colorado School of Mines. And when I was at Central Methodist, I got to work some basketball camps at Estes Park. A guy I was in graduate school with had become the head coach at Metro State in Denver, and he was running basketball camps up at Estes Park. He invited me to come and work the camps. And 2 of the veteran coaches that were there at the time, Jack Cotton and Jim Darden, who played on the very first Denver Nuggets NBA team, by the way, both played at the University of Wyoming. But both of them, one was the head coach at Adams State, one at Colorado School of Mines, and they were there. And Jim Darden, the coach at Mines, while I'm out there between sessions, I'm on the phone recruiting. And I come back to where we were all staying, and Coach Darden said to me, what are you doing? So I'm making some calls. I'm recruiting. Said, Coach, let me give you a little bit of advice. If you find, I was coaching at Central Methodist at the time, and I went 61 and 93 there. Those numbers are in my brain. So we needed better players. But he said, Coach, I want to give you some advice. If you find a school that you really like and you want to stay there, you don't want to win too much. And I looked at him and I said, would you repeat that? I said, if you find a place you really like and you want to stay there for your coaching career or most of your coaching career, don't win too much. I said, really? I said, yeah, because if you start winning too much, the people are going to expect it every year. And as soon as you have 2 or 3 bad years, you're out of there. And I looked at his coaching career at Colorado School of Mines, and he was there for, I think, over 40 years. And it was a little bit below 500, but a great coach. I mean, he had followed his own philosophy. Obviously, I didn't follow that philosophy and wanted to win every game, and he did too. But he was just making a point that he lived it.
Yeah, he absolutely did, and it doesn't sound like anybody ever wanted to run you off because obviously you coached for a long, long time. Of course, there are always struggles along the way, and you mentioned your wife, and you raised 3 wonderful children, and you lost her in 2006. That obviously, somebody you've been with for that long, and at that point in your life, probably everything seems great, and it's obviously an odd respiratory syndrome that she had. How difficult was that?
Well, it was. I mean, we had been married for 31 years. We're at a basketball tournament in Florida at Daytona Beach at Embry-Riddle University, and we're walking the beach in January. A month later, she's in a coma in the Liberty Hospital in February. And a month later, she passes away. I mean, it was very, very quick, very sudden. Obviously, a shock to all of us, to our 3 daughters, and to me. And it was a shock to the system for sure. We were at the time in the national tournament. Wright Thompson wrote a very nice article in Kansas City Star about it. But it's I think about think about my mom a little bit in this regard, and how her life, my life mirrored hers. She and Dad eloped, got married in a Christian church right next to Jewell College in Liberty. My wife and I eloped and got married in the Christian church in Bonita, Oklahoma. Mom and Dad had been married for 31 plus years. Ann and I were married for 31 plus years. So it kind of mirrored my mom and dad. And but it was, it was an adjustment. I just became very thankful that I had 31 plus with her. And a lot of people don't get 31 plus with the love of their life. And I got that. And so it was, but it's still, to this day, still tough on my daughters, and they have great memories of her. And then fortunately, one of Ann's best friends, who she taught with, arranged for me to meet the lady I'm married to now. So I tell people Annie's still looking after me. Her best friend introduced me to Linda McLeod, and who is the love of my life. And I've been blessed, for the past 12 years to, as they say, I've outkicked my coverage twice. And very, very blessed. She has 2 daughters, and now we have, how many grandchildren? I think we have 8 grandchildren, and 7 of them are girls. So I have 1 grandson, but no, it was a very challenging time in my life in 2006, and it's funny how life works, and I'm blessed beyond measure right now with Linda and her 2 daughters, and my 3 daughters, and our grandchildren together. Yes.
What was it like for you and your wife? You're a basketball coach. Basketball coaches are dedicated. You talked about how you like to keep yourself busy. Lindsay, Lauren, Lacey, what was it like raising them?
Well, I tell people that, I would come home from coaching or scouting or recruiting, and most of the time they might have already been in bed, but my job was to get them up in the morning, help them make their beds, put them to bed at night, say their prayers, and did most of the raising. I was gone a lot, and she did a marvelous job, but it was fun. I mean, they were great. They came to my basketball camps growing up. They weren't, I think they liked the social part of it. None of them played through their junior or senior year. Lindsay played through her sophomore year, and I think Lacey and Lauren through their 8th grade year. But and they were interested in other things, be it the dance team or whatever. Lindsay, my oldest, became a Chiefs cheerleader, and so got some good tickets to the Chiefs games for those 4 years. But I tell people, I say I have 3 daughters. I wouldn't trade any of them for a son. But if I had a son, I'd love for him to be involved with the student athletes that I've coached at Central Methodist or Northwest or at William-Jewell. It's but they've been a blessing. I'm obviously very close with them. I don't see them much now. 2 of them still live here in Kansas City. One lives in Nixa. She and her husband lived in Lee Summit, but he's in a doctoral program through Missouri State, so they've moved to Nixa. But very, very blessed with Linda's daughters and grandchildren, and my daughters and grandchildren.
One more basketball thing, and then we'll wrap things up here. What a fantastic conversation and great stories told. Later in your career, William-Jewell moved up, as it were, in the college basketball ranks, and the competition was stiffer, and that was a little tougher. And you probably lost more games than you would have liked then. How difficult was that for you?
Well, it was a challenge. I remember when I first took this job, the president of the MIAA, John Meese, actually came to Jewell to see if Jewell would be interested in joining the MIAA, and that was at a time that we were rolling pretty good, and I felt like maybe we could compete in the MIAA in basketball, but football was a different deal with that league, but then. We had a period of time where William-Jewell was considering NCAA more academically, actually. It was just part of a program. William-Jewell has high academics and admission standards and all that sort of thing, and trying to be Phi Beta Kappa, and none of the NAI schools in the nation were Phi Beta Kappa. anyway, we made the move. We actually looked at NCAA Division III and we looked at NCAA Division II, and then the GLVC came in and invited us in, and it was a challenge for us, quite honestly. Only had one 20-win season, and it was a challenge. I knew it would be. It's a great league. I think at the time Kentucky Wesleyan was in our league. They'd won 8 national titles. Bellarmine had won a national title, and Drury would later on win a national title. They had won an NAIA national title, but they would win a title. And Southern Indiana had won 1 or 2 when Bruce Pearl was there. So it was, if not the best NCAA Division II conference in the nation, certainly one of the best, and had won more NCAA Division II titles than any other league in the nation. So it was obviously very good. And our challenge was, we are in a hotbed of NCAA Division II, and the recruiting obviously stepped up. Not that we didn't have some players who were NCAA Division II level players at Jewell, because we did, but we just needed more of them. And we were in an area where Northwest Missouri and Central Missouri and Drury and Washburn and all these really top-notch NCAA Division II programs, and we were struggling to maybe get the area players that we really wanted, and we got a few, but it obviously increased our area recruiting. I had never had a full-time assistant coach, believe it or not, until my last 2 years at William Jewell. And I had great part-timers, don't get me wrong, but they had jobs during the day, and they couldn't get out on the road. And so we got better my last couple of years, because we actually expanded our recruiting and got players from outside the immediate area. Not that we weren't trying immediately, but obviously you take a look at Northwest Missouri State, and most of their guys are from their area, and that's what you want to do. But it was a challenge. It humbled me again. I tell people my coaching career is kind of like a bell curve. When I think I was 63 and 91 my first 6 years at Central Methodist, and then it kind of got up to where it was pretty good, and then I ended on kind of a downer. We did have a great year, my next to last year, and then had the three top players back, and one of them got hurt, which affected us. Again, I'm a lot smarter with all my best players on the floor, but the competition was outstanding. I loved the travel, all these new places I got to coach in, and all these coaches I got to coach against. It was an honor. Didn't go as well as I would have liked, but still proud of the young men that were in the program.
One thing that's just a truly remarkable thing, but first of all, I want to talk about the 17-18 season. You did win the 20 games that year. You had your second highest finish in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, and you won your 900th game. I mean, it puts you in unbelievable territory, and Mike Krzyzewski and only a handful of coaches really did it. That year and that milestone must have been incredibly impactful for you.
It was. We kind of finally got to where I felt like we were on fairly equal footing. That everyone wasn't an upset, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a new style of play for me with the 5 out, and we were a tough matchup because we had our 6'6" kid was really good, could shoot the 3, and now their centers had to come away from the basket, and he could put it on the floor and go past. But it was a lot of fun, and candidly had an assistant coach at the time that was doing a great job, and I really thought about stepping aside, but we had those guys back, and then early the following year, actually on or around, I want to say October 1st, maybe the end of September, he gets offered the top assistant's job at Furman. And he leaves, and I was about to announce my resignation at that time, and we had recruited a really good class, and some of those kids were there because of him more than me, although I certainly was a part of it. And now they'd lost the guy that was going to be there for the next 4 years, and so I delayed my announcement because I didn't think I should do that at that time, and I didn't change my mind, so I finally did announce, and it's it was that, and that was a tough decision because I'd been 40 years at my alma mater and had a great run, despite the fact we weren't as successful in the last few years as we had been earlier at the NAIA level. But it was a great year, great young men. It's 3 of those guys are playing professionally now. So 4 of those guys were 4 of the best that I'd ever coached in my 40 years at Jewell. So it was a tough decision to step aside, but it was the right decision, and I think I retired at the right time, Danny. My goodness gracious, I was just getting used. I was just getting used to being retired when this thing hit. Yeah. And,
everybody's kind of retired right now, right?
Absolutely, right. Absolutely. And I still talk to the people at Jewell, and obviously, I went to games this a year ago, and it was just kind of strange. I was just trying to hide. I didn't sit behind the bench or at the baseline or across from them. I kind of got as far away as I could, but it was fun watching the guys that I had recruited. Almost the entire squad, except for a couple, had been guys that. So I still care about those guys, and we'll always care about Williams-Jewell.
Well, speaking about caring about guys, 96% of your 4-year players graduated from college. I mean, that is an absolutely remarkable feat for a coach, and it must make you almost every bit as proud as the 900 wins.
It is, and I know where those other 4% are, and we're still trying to get them come back to school and make it 100%. But no, it's and that's not because any of the schools that I've been is easy, and especially not Williams-Jewell. It's a real challenge academically. But again, when you don't have to worry about somebody academically, that takes a lot of pressure off also. And we've had, I think, an equal number or more academic All-Americans than actual All-Americans, and that certainly makes me very proud. But what makes me very proud, and I'll mention Linda, my wife at this time, when we first got married, she noticed that I was getting invitations to weddings. And every time it got so bad that I would walk into Bed Bath & Beyond and say, okay, another gift certificate for Coach Holley. Another one of these players is getting married. So we went to lots of weddings. And watching those people, my success or failure is going to be based on what those young men do with their lives. And I've been very proud of that.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new. This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com, specializing in expert healthcare guidance and assistance for you.